the court case. Chriselda, welcome.
Thank you very much, Colin.
Well, I understand there was a huge turnout outside the court today.
Well, certainly, Colin, quite a huge media contingent as expected. Of course, this has been the case since Oscar Pistorius shot and killed Reeva Steenkamp back in 2013. So for the next episode, if I may, of this protracted legal battle, we were expecting quite a large media contingent to find out whether Oscar Pistorius would spend Christmas in jail or whether he will spend Christmas at home. So the world's media certainly was outside the North Gauteng High Court today to hear what the outcome would be of today's proceedings.
When he appeared, how did you look like? Because when we saw him in the shots there, he just had an expressionless face. But in reality, when he was walking into the court, what did you see?
He was mobbed by the media, first of all, when he came through. And he didn't really show much emotion. But once he sat inside the court, Oscar Pistorius started playing with his cell phone. I'm not sure if he was on a social networking site or responding to messages, but really essentially conversing with his legal team and giving a few hugs here and there. And the only time that we got to see Oscar Pistorius smile was after the deputy judge president had ruled, of course, that Oscar Pistorius is receiving bail, and it read out those conditions. He essentially went and hugged his legal team and gave a bit of a smile. That's all we could make of Oscar Pistorius' appearance today, but certainly looking a bit thinner than the Oscar Pistorius that we saw during the trial. That's essentially all that we could pick up.
Yeah, looking a little bit thinner. I heard in the newspapers that actually he says that jail is actually terrible for him. But then, during the build-up towards his appearance, some people were speculating that he's broke, he doesn't have enough money to afford the legal team. Do we have any word out of that?
Well, that's certainly what is very interesting in this regard, Colin, is that you will know now that Oscar Pistorius' legal team indicated at the North Gauteng High Court that they plan to appeal the murder conviction at the Constitutional Court. Now, that would mean that needs more money. We've already heard that Oscar Pistorius is broke, and essentially in court today, what we heard from his defense team is that Oscar Pistorius can only afford 10,000 rand bail, which of course was granted by the deputy judge president, Aubrey Ledwaba. So as to where that money is going to come from to fund this other battle that the defense wants to embark on certainly remains to be seen.
So what's going to happen now from now until the court appearance next year?
Well, essentially what has happened here, Colin, is that the case has been postponed to the 18th of April in 2016. Now, that's provisionally, because now Oscar Pistorius' legal team has indicated that they want to approach the Constitutional Court in order to file papers to challenge this murder conviction that was found by the Supreme Court of Appeal. Of course, that was overturned from culpable homicide to murder. So essentially what happens now is that if that leave to appeal is granted, then that means further date would need to be sought for when sentencing proceedings will take place. But for now, everything remains to be seen about when the papers will be filed in the Constitutional Court. Generally, it takes, they're supposed to do it within 14 to 15 days, but you must remember, court is quite in the process, in recess at this point. So it's going to make it exceptionally difficult. We cannot confine the filing of those papers in the Constitutional Court to 14 to 15 days. They can do it over a much longer period. But certainly it remains to be seen what the basis for bringing that application for leave to appeal the murder conviction will be. But the speculation that we're getting from many of these law experts is that first of all, before you take an issue to the Constitutional Court, there's got to be a constitutional matter that you've got to argue. And in this regard, the defense team is likely to argue that Oscar Pistorius did not receive a fair trial, number one, on the basis of the large media contingent that was there. If you rewind just a bit, you would recall, of course, that the trial judge, Judge Thokozile Masipa, had indicated that Oscar Pistorius was a poor witness. So some would say that was on the basis of the media contingent. For example, some of the witnesses were influenced when they gave their testimonies because the whole thing was broadcast live on television and beamed around the world. So certainly those are some of the issues that we're expecting the defense to put forward when they file those papers in the Constitutional Court. When that happens certainly remains to be seen. But it certainly seems that we're in it for the long haul at this time, since they've indicated so. But for now, Oscar Pistorius will spend Christmas with his family.
Just before you go, Chriselda, yesterday we were actually struggling to get comment from the NPA, and they were playing their cards close to their chest in terms of whether or not they were going to oppose bail today. So what's going to happen from now from their side? Do you think that actually they will go a long way in actually making sure that they ensure Oscar's conviction, rather, Oscar going back to jail?
Well, certainly. I mean, the state has always maintained that Oscar Pistorius knew what he was doing when he fired those 4 shots through the bathroom door. So certainly we're expecting quite a stern argument from the state moving forward in this matter. Of course, on the mere basis, just returning back to the bail application that you spoke about, we knew that the state was not going to oppose the bail application on the basis that, Oscar Pistorius had complied with all the bail conditions from the very beginning when he'd been placed on bail. There'd been no concern about him not adhering to the bail conditions that had been set out. He attended the trial right until the end. So there'd barely been no basis. But the court did say today that it did need to take into account the fact that the seriousness of the charge of the conviction, which is murder. They took that into account. But as we had predicted earlier, they then circumvented that with, of course, stricter conditions, where we see now Oscar Pistorius will only be allowed to leave the house between 7 o'clock in the morning and 12 o'clock, which is midday. He would also need to wear a tracking device to track his movements. He's also only allowed to go about 20 kilometers away from his uncle's home, where he continues to serve the remainder of his sentence under house arrest. So really strict conditions that Oscar Pistorius is going to need to comply to during this period, while this, of course, they continue with this bit of the Constitutional Court, and of course, while we still wait to see if that is allowed at all, if leave to appeal is granted.
All right, you're the leader on the story, so we'll hear from you as and when issues develop.
You certainly will.
All right, Chriselda Lewis talking to us live right here on News Today about the developments as and when the story uncovered today in the court. So the following